Hello, I would like to welcome you to the Supplier Code of Conduct template. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Filipe Brito and your guide for today's template. We at Procurement Tactics have over 20 years of procurement and negotiation experience to share with you, one of those being the Supplier Code of Conduct template. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. Let's talk about what a Supplier Code of Conduct is. A Supplier Code of Conduct is a formal document that outlines an organization's ethical standards and expectations from its suppliers. It ensures that your suppliers act according to your standards. Think of it like a pact between two friends, if pacts were written down as formal documents. The Supplier Code of Conduct addresses the behaviors of your suppliers concerning things like labor practices, human rights, environmental impact, and other ethical business conduct. The Supplier Code of Conduct emphasizes the safety and rights of employees, and this also encourages suppliers to minimize their environmental footprint and adhere to sustainability practices and goals set out by your organizations. Aside from this, the code promotes anti-corruption measures and fair competition, which further drives the ethical standards of your organization and its suppliers towards a rightfully high standard. Now, to ensure that the code is upheld, there are of course audits and assessments that need to be done, as it's crucial to keeping your organization's rules and regulations from being bent or broken. Failure to comply should, of course, have specified consequences, which are also addressed in the Supplier Code of Conduct. Overall, the Supplier Code of Conduct helps with managing risks on top of setting clear expectations and enhancing your brand image and company reputation. It sets a precedent for committing to ethical sourcing and sustainability and treating your stakeholders and suppliers with dignity and respect. Let's discuss the process of making a Supplier Code of Conduct briefly. This is just to give you an overview and some tips on its making and implementation before we dive into the content of the code itself. First and foremost, before any drafting of the code can be done, a gap analysis is needed to inform your Supplier Code of Conduct. A gap analysis is a method of assessing the difference between an organization's desired performance and current performance. It identifies the gaps and how to bridge those gaps, which is why it's called a gap analysis. Usually, a gap analysis follows these steps: defining the desired state or goal, assessing the current state, identifying the gaps or discrepancies, and developing an action plan to close the gaps. Once the gap analysis is done and areas of improvement have been identified, the next move would be to gather insight from the stakeholders from within and outside the organization, like suppliers, employees, and industry experts. It's important to have their input, as no organization moves on the whim of just one individual. It's a group effort, and once insight has been gathered from the people that make your organizational process possible, then it must be ensured that the code reflects the values and expectations of all parties involved. When drafting the code itself, it has to use clear and concise language and include all necessary content, which we will delve into with more detail in a separate part of this template. Once the draft is finished, then it should be reviewed with stakeholders for feedback and finalization. Once this is all done, the code should be published and distributed through various channels like emails and physical copies. This ensures accessibility so that no stakeholder can use ignorance as an excuse for not abiding by the code of conduct. There should also be an open channel of communication when it comes to answering questions and facilitating understanding among suppliers concerning the code. Now, the implementation of the code requires suppliers and employees education and training. This ensures that there is clear understanding of the code's purpose and requirements. Regular audits and assessments should happen to monitor compliance with the code, along with establishing a clear process for addressing violations. Now, we have been discussing the process of creating a Supplier Code of Conduct, but we have only touched the surface of what actually goes into the document itself. So let's start talking about that. Let's break down what should be in the content of your Supplier Code of Conduct. We'll go over each element that should be present within your Supplier Code of Conduct, and we'll be providing you with a sample Supplier Code of Conduct that also doubles as a guideline for how you make your own. Note that the provided guideline and sample should be nothing more than what it is: a guideline and sample. You can use it as an inspiration or foundation for your own Supplier Code of Conduct, but make sure that it's personalized to your needs. Now let's look at each of these Supplier Code of Conduct elements we'll be discussing, which also coincide with the outline and sample that this template comes with. First and foremost is the introduction. In the introduction, it should clearly state the purpose of the Supplier Code of Conduct, along with the parties involved and the legal framework that it operates under. It's also in this section that there should be an outline of the commitment to ethical practices and corporate social responsibility. Human rights and labor standards seem like an obvious rule to abide by, but having specifics in writing is an absolute must, as it not only adheres to the law but also upholds company morals, standards, and reputation. There should be an emphasis on how suppliers need to uphold their workers' dignity and rights within the supply chain. Your Supplier Code of Conduct should address issues such as the prohibition of forced and child labor, non-discrimination, and the right to freely chosen employment. Work hours, wages, and the human treatment of employees should also be covered, as a commitment to respecting human rights should be a must. As environmental impact has become more urgent in recent years, it's no surprise that the Supplier Code of Conduct needs to emphasize this. In the code, there should be a guideline for minimizing environmental impact and adhering to local and international environmental laws. Sustainable practices should also be promoted, since it's one of the most utilized moments against environmental impact. Your Supplier Code of Conduct should outline your organization's expectations for ethical behavior from your supplier. This includes things like ethical behavior, including anti-corruption measures, fair business practices, and transparency in supplier relationships. It's important to emphasize in your Supplier Code of Conduct that your suppliers have to be certified. They have to have proven through certification that they meet your quality standards and that they are worth your business efforts. This also ensures that you have a smaller and more quality-efficient pool of suppliers to pick from. Suppliers are required to meet company standards with regard to the quality of goods and services. The organization's reputation is on the line when it comes to this, as it reflects on them as well. Quality metrics and customer expectations should be upheld by the suppliers, and the company itself will ensure this with regular monitoring and performance evaluations. This is the perfect way to introduce the next element on the list, which is compliance and monitoring. Of course, as with any sort of established rule, there should also be a way to monitor. Your Supplier Code of Conduct should specify how compliance with the code will be monitored, including regular audits and assessments. Along with this, the responsibilities for ensuring adherence to the code should be clearly defined. Now that you have established all the things that should be adhered to and followed, there should be a section that clearly defines the consequences of violating the code. This part should explain the process of how to address violations of the code, including potential corrective actions and the circumstances under which supplier relationships may be terminated. And finally, we have the final part, which is the acknowledgement of the agreement. This part of the Supplier Code of Conduct is simply where suppliers sign the document to acknowledge that they understand the Supplier Code of Conduct and that they are willing to uphold it to the best of their abilities as a supplier for your organization. And once you have all these elements in your Supplier Code of Conduct, then congratulations, because you have a rough draft to show your stakeholders for feedback and finalization. And that's it for the Supplier Code of Conduct template. If this template was helpful to you, then you might want to look into our other procurement courses and procurement templates as well. There is a vast amount of knowledge to learn and no shortage of help available here. This has been Filipe Brito, and we can't wait to see you in the next one.